right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 22nd Conversation on Buddha Nature. So this is a series of online interviews with Buddhist practitioners, scholars, and thinkers on the topic of Buddha nature, hosted by Tsadra Foundation in association with the educational resource website, buddhanature.org. For this event, our regular hosts, Lopan Dr. Karma Punso, will speak with Lama Chunam and Sangye Khandro, co-founders of the Light of Bharatsana Translation Group and well-known master translators of Tibetan texts. Today, we celebrate a special publication of a famous text, the Qiyingzi. So we congratulate them on this important publication, supported in part by Eric Cullenbell, the founder and president of Tsadra Foundation. So please feel free to send questions with the Q&A function if you're on Zoom, or using Facebook comments if you're on Facebook Live during the discussion, and we'll have a time set aside for questions with the speakers at the end. So for now, to introduce the speakers. Lama Chunam was born in Golok, Eastern Tibet, and his root master, Khenpo Munsel, was a direct disciple of Khenpo Ngakchung and was one of the great authentic Dzogchen masters of the 20th century. Since coming to the United States in 1992, Lama Chunam lived near and studied extensively with Kyabje Tinle Norbu Rinpoche and has engaged in extensive studies under the guidance of Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche. Sangye Khandro became a Buddhist practitioner in 1972 and a translator of the Dharma in 1976. Under the guidance of her root masters Kyabje Dudjom Rinpoche and Sangyum Kusho, together with Gyatso Rinpoche, she established Dharma centers in the United States and Mexico. She has been a translator for many prominent masters and is now an accomplished teacher, as well as the principal translator for Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche since 1996. As you all know, Lopan Dr. Karma Punso is the recipient of Tsadra Foundation's Writer in Digital Residence Grant for Buddha Nature Studies and is our usual host for these conversations on Buddha nature. Karma Punso is one of Bhutan's leading intellectuals and completed both monastic training in the Tibetan traditions as well as a doctorate at Oxford. He is the founder of the Loden Foundation in Bhutan, and his work is well known across the Himalayas and in Buddhist studies circles around the world. So without further ado, please welcome Lama Chunam and Sangye Khandro joining us from Oregon, and Karma Punso joining us from Bhutan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tashidele, Lama and Sangela, and all the attendees around the world. Let's begin this session with a brief moment to look at the state of our mind and cultivate the altruistic bodhicitta, to pray that this session and everything we do benefit both oneself and others, and take all sentient beings from the sea of suffering to the ultimate state of happiness, Buddhahood. Thank you very much. What a great honor for me to welcome you to our forum. And as Marcus has introduced, we have been doing this for some years now, with the hope to create a forum to carry out right speech, mindful listening, and meaningful exploration of our inner nature and true meaning in life, and also through this forum to spread the Buddhist ethos of wisdom and compassion to the wider world. And it's wonderful to have two of you. I have known Sangye Khandro from 1990s when I was a young monk student at Namdro Ling. And I don't think we have met since then. So 30 years ago was my last meeting. And it's a great pleasure again. What a great honor to meet Lama. And I think it's also extreme case of joy for me to see two of you who are also following Khenpo Namdro Rinpoche, who is my main teacher for tantric studies, at least when I was in Namdro Ling. And then to, of course, celebrate your achievement of this great translation of Longchenpa's Chögyam Rinpoche, Jewel Treasure of Dharma Dhatu, as you translate it. So congratulations. I still don't have the hard copy of your book, but I had a glimpse to the soft copy. But to start off the conversation, before we delve deeper into the content and the topic of the book, I'm really curious, and I think a lot of people in our audience would be curious to know more about two of you, besides the brief biography that Marcus shared. I mean, what brought you to this stage where you're producing this translation of Chögyam Rinpoche's, which I think is the first translation of the commentary. So either of you, please feel free, whichever of you, whoever wants to start off. And also please feel free to interject and interrupt. So this is more as a conversation than an interview.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Sadra, for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to share this forum with so many people around the world. It's truly an honor. And also the blessings of the Dharma and omniscient Longchenpa manifesting right before us. I don't want to take too much time talking about myself, but I was fortunate to find the Dharma as a young woman. I was raised a Mormon, so I was always religious, and I had many questions. And so eventually I couldn't accept that doctrine, and so I was searching. And I dropped out of university in my sophomore year to go to India, as circumstances would have it. I was able to go. I wanted to meet, my objective was to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama, no matter what, even if I died on the way getting there. So we hitchhiked across Europe and the Middle East, and we arrived in Dharamsala when the Tibetan Library of Works and Archives had just begun. There was translation, and I began to listen to the teachings from one wonderful Geshe, Ngawang Darge, who taught for 6 months at that time. We studied some texts, and I took refuge and bodhisattva vows. Many of the others in the group decided to become ordained. I think I was the only one in that original group, or one of the few, who decided not to take ordination. And my journey started there. So I began studying in the Gelu tradition, and later, by a stroke of amazing fortune, I met Gyabje Dudjom Rinpoche when he visited Hawaii in 1973. And when I met him, I knew he was my root teacher. I took refuge with him. And then, since that time, I've been practicing under his direction, which I was fortunate to receive directly for many years, until his parinirvana, actually, until a few years before that. And I began translating, not to become a translator. I should say I began studying Tibetan language, not to become a translator. It was just that I realized this was my tradition, this was my life, and almost 95% of it was in the Tibetan language, so I should definitely learn this language if I was going to continue pursuing this. And so I began studying for that reason. But because I'm a Westerner, and because we were beginning to invite and host great masters who were coming to the West, then by default I began translating, before I was really prepared, actually. But it was a learning process, and I'm very appreciative of it, although it was highly stressful. Later, when I first heard Khenchen Namdrol Rinpoche teach, I knew that this was a master that I wanted to study with and translate for going forward. So it has been one of the greatest honors of my life to be his close disciple and to work with him all these years. He's an incredible teacher. And in between that, after the parinirvana of Gyabje Dudjom Rinpoche, I was fortunate to continue studying with his son, Gyabje Trinley Norbu Rinpoche, whom I had actually been studying with before that. So I would have to say Gyaltsen Trilino Rinpoche really trained me in Dzogchen terminology and translation style and Upadesha instruction of this tradition. And Kenshin Namdo Rinpoche has been the master who has filled in everything else in its entirety and continues to do so. So that's just a short synopsis of my history.
Thank you. What a wonderful, marvelous story. I know friends like Gene Smith made that same kind of journey. I think also a Mormon coming to India in those days.
Yes,
And
yes.
the kind of impact now you have all over the world. And this is a fantastic story of the West coming to the East. And then we have now Lama, the East going to the West. I've been to Delta once, and I'm a student. I consider myself a student of Khenpo Jigme Phuntsho Rinpoche, but I know very little about Golok. But how did you end up in Oregon from Golok?
I think really karma, that is really exactly, really, I believe 100% karma. I don't have any plan to come to America or anything, only wishing to go to India and visit sacred places where Buddha taught and lived, and those always was my dream, and also receive some teachings from Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And then 1991, escaped from Tibet, and then 1990, and then I went to visit all over the India for 2-3 months, visit sacred places in India, Nepal, and received some teachings from Holiness, and completely satisfied and going back to Tibet. And then Tartan Rinpoche was there. He invited 2 times, but first I said no, thank you. And the second time he was there, stayed there, and when I came back from India, I thought I should offer a kada because I heard about him. He's also he's from Golok, where I came from, and that's why I went to visit, and he encouraged me to come to America, and that's why I came. And then there's a lot of stories, but then later I worked with the translators without really knowing any English, and just trying to whatever I can help them, and then continuously like that kind of connection, then really that tells karma, but not something because I trained as a translator, but then the circumstances really amazing. Otherwise I won't have this kind of wonderful opportunity to thinking about profound Buddha Dharma and translate and publish it. Impossible because of my teachers, such as Trilino Rinpoche. Since I came to America, it's really amazing, like a teacher, like a father, like everything really. And then Sangye Kando is just amazing, saved my life when I was sick, and then also working these opportunities because of Sangye. And then slowly, my karma, but also I able to kind of like realized this is my karma, I should focus. And then 3 years later, went back to Tibet, and the Chinese government interrogated many asked questions, and then finally said you not belong to this country anymore because you without permission you left, and now you can come back with visa but not permanently live here. And then kind of like more I know I have to study English and focus in this part of the world. This is karma, and that's why I'm here. And then Trungpa Rinpoche and Khenchen Namdrol Rinpoche is amazing. His kindness, his wisdom, and all of those, that's why I'm here enjoying with you. This kind of work and this kind of activity. Thank you.
Daso Lama, thank you. What again, fascinating, beautiful story. Ironically, you know, two of you seem to have both had very close connection to Dujun Rinpoche and Chilenurba Rinpoche, who were actually very close to Bhutan. I've never had the opportunity to meet either of them, but then I, of course, rejoice in the privilege and the opportunity I had of meeting many lamas from Kham and Golok area. You both sort of tell this story of becoming accidental translators. Somehow the universe conspired you to become translators, but then now you are having big impact as translators through Light of Berosana, which is what I would like to know more about. We have many translation committees of translators around the world now conveying Tibetan Himalayan Buddhist wisdom to the West. And often you find one single person, or often a Westerner, doing the translations, sometimes in Asian, like Thupten Jinpa and others. But you don't find a combo like it used to be in the traditional Tibetan system, the Lotsawa and the Pandita. So do you have that role as a combo of Lotsawa and Pandita, or you have a different dynamics? Share us more about your project Light of Berosana.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, you know, I never thought of that combo. So no comment there. Perhaps he's the Pandita. But at any rate, I have learned how important it is to work with a Tibetan scholar when you're translating. This was a big lesson that I learned along the way, and I'm adamant about encouraging young translators to always work with a Tibetan expert reader when they're translating, to check their work grammatically and so forth. But in terms of Light of Berosana, back in the early days of translating orally in the 80s and 90s, it was really hard. You know, translators were virtually unacknowledged or compensated. And so there was a lot of struggling, and it was really an act of devotion. And our colleague, Jules Levinson, actually, Light of Berosana began due to him, because one time when he was translating for Trungpa Rinpoche, a disciple approached him. His name was David Lunsford. And he said, after the teaching, he said, you know, I've been observing you, and I really appreciate you and the few other translators who are able to do this. And it looks to me like no one's really helping you. What can I do to help? And so Jules was shocked. And he called me and he said, Sangye, this amazing person has contacted me and he's asking what he can do to help. I beg you to call him and ask him to help you, because Jules knew how much I was personally struggling and hoping to be able to make a better platform for translators going forward. And so I did something I usually would never do. I picked up the phone and I called David Lunsford. And I was like shaking. I remember I was so nervous. And as soon as I said my name, he was so kind. He said, oh, yes, I've heard of you. He said, yes, what can I do to help? So David sponsored the incorporation of Light of Berosana in 1999. He flew out from Austin to meet us, and Jules came, and the three of us, along with David's help and sponsorship, began this platform of translation work. And at that time, we were living in Palm Desert, and Dungse Trilinob Rinpoche gave us our name, Light of Berosana. And so that's how it began. And David helped us for some years, I think 5 or 6 years. And then later, we were assisted by Linda Pritzker, Lama Somo of the Namchak Foundation. For many years, through her kindness, we were able to continue working and translating. And then at a certain point, we no longer had a major sponsor. And so we began trying out, testing the waters of doing our own publications and distribution. And that's how it's been now for some years. And with the kindness of Eric, we're able to continue on because actually, even now, because our books are so restricted, the audience is limited. You know, everything we translate is highly esoteric, it seems like. And Eric has been so kind to help with the publications, making it all possible. And one other thing I should say is Lama Chunam also works with other translations, with other translators, doing translations that are a part of Light of Bharatsana as well. And for a while I was doing that, but I've stopped doing that. So it's really he who will carry this forward.
Oh, thank you for the information. I heard of David Lunsford, I think regarding making good editions, PDF versions of some Nyingma corpuses, but didn't know he was also behind the Light of Bharatsana. Lama, is this a big group you have right now? How many people are involved currently, and what kind of projects do you have?
Right now, I'm working with one of old friend. His name is Dominic Sur, and he's a professor from University of Utah. And he and I think it translated Tachin Tsunju and different things already published. But I'm working with him, Takpa Gi Chichang Zamdir, the general frameworks of 9 vehicles, the commentary and root text, and the commentary by Gatamba Darshan Hyangbo, and then the root verse compiled by Gatamba Darshan Hyangbo, and the commentary is Yihi Johnson, his students, the student of Gatamba Darshan Hyangbo. Just start, and we will work on that for next year, this year, and also that's also Zata Foundation's helping. And then also I'm working with another student. Her name is Samantha Yu, and she's also a teacher somewhere in San Francisco. And we're working on Kambujigme Panchos Nyartam Nyanga Tigli. It's just like 2 or 3 pages, but the commentary by Kambu Tsudong Lodu, it's really kind of like very beautiful, and that's almost finishing. We're working on. And then there's another friend and student of Khandro Rinpoche, Mundroling Khandro Rinpoche, and his name is Jap Pakas, and we're working on Ro Samchut, the root. They're already translation by Ro Samchut, and then commentary by Jesse Champentai. And then another 2 translators, they're couples, doctors, Jen Haas and David Shapiro. And we're working on the Epic of Gesar Ling, War with the Horror, country of horror, and a lot of pages, 2 volumes, but we're just starting because they're really good with that kind of terminology, getting better and better. I'm working here and there like that. Those are my projects right now. And then
Yes.
the process of working is like some student able to translate rough drop, and then we going through, listen, they read to me and listen again, and then if there is a correction, we going to read there, correct, and then later again read, many times reading back and forth, because my English is not that good. They have to really read slow and repeat many times like that. And sometimes I have the translation and then Tibetan, just like really, I read one Tibetan line and then read English, read like back and forth. If there is something like have to change, I take notes, write now notes in Tibetan, what is it, what I thought and everything, and then go through together and we fix like that. Sometimes some student, I ask them to read first and then translate. I watch if they're able to translate whole sentence or few terminologies bring into English, and then I will try to say in English, and then we work together. We're able to put in sentence, and that's the kind of process. But once they're able to read, and then I just work with them slowly, be patient, and they're really improving. They're really smart, the people, the translators, young translators, because they're also good with the computer. Whatever, even the moment you say something, they're already just in the sentence
Wrote it down.
yeah, wrote it down. That's the process of my working with them.
Yes, so thank you, Lama. I was not aware you're working on the whole length and breadth of the Nyingma tradition, going from Rongzom, Kadampa Deshe, and even Ryu Sangche, Gesar of Ling, and yes, it's fascinating to listen to the process of translation. If time permits, I think this is something we should come back to. But for now, as we are launching the book, and the book, the translation you brought out is the theme of today's event. I want to ask you, I mean, how did you come to do this particular translation? Was it mainly because your teacher, Dusat Thinanubu Rinpoche, has started it and has left it incomplete for you to complete? How did you come to work on Longchenpa and his Chögyam Rinpoche?
Yes, thank you. Actually, initially, because Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche agreed to teach it. He was requested to teach the Chingzit many years ago. But as we mentioned in our translator's preface, he decided to teach the Sikdon Rinpoche first. And he never said for sure he would teach the Ching Rinpoche until some years after that. And when he agreed to do it, then we were in Palm Desert and we were having Gana Chakra with our precious Sangha there on Guru Rinpoche Day. And after that puja, Trilino Rinpoche's Khandro Kunzong, she shared with us that Rinpoche had this translation, and she shared that it was Rinpoche's wish that I would work on it and that she would give it to me. And she gave us the permission to use the translation during the teachings of Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche's 6-year transmission. And so that was just kind of the most unbelievable blessing for the entire project, quite frankly. And so we began.
Oh, wonderful. And so you have finished the translation of the root verses that His Holiness Dusat Thinanubu Rinpoche has done up to 8th chapter, as far according to your book. And then you did the commentary entirely yourself. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the case. But based on Ken Rinpoche's teaching. So, you know, we weren't able to finalize this translation until the entire teaching was complete. But during the teaching, we have process that we would distribute a rough draft translation to the recipients so that they can relate and follow, because there's so many citations. I mean, the commentary is literally a treasury of citations. So it's almost impossible to just instantly translate a citation properly, as you know. So we had that rough draft with the understanding that once this final translation was complete, students promised to destroy those other pages and however they had it electronically, and then use this exclusively going forward.
But before this, you had also done the translation of Sigden Rinpoche's.
Yes.
So, was that also because Khenchen Namdul Rinpoche taught it, or was there some other reason behind that?
Yes, I think really this such profound teachings when I went back to Tibet, when they asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working with the translators and translating." What kind of translation? I will say like the Gesara Epic and different things, but really almost like can't even say this kind of subjects I'm translating, because in Tibet, especially in Golok, very restrict this kind of teachings, and this subject someone's really thinking and explaining is really great scholars. Only here and there, one or two here and there may be recognized, but not like a ordinary individual like myself. They will misunderstood what I'm trying to say, not necessary to bring up. But my situation is I'm really simple, ordinary individual practitioner, but we had the opportunity. The great teachers like Tenlino Rinpoche, his favorite subject is Longchenpa's teachings. And also his favorite subject is Dzogpa Chenpo. It's just like when you ask or without asking, whatever Dharma subject is just lead to this subject. When we're translating, really try our best and collect the most difficult terminologies. Every night we see him, we ask questions. Some nights he will say, tonight I'm tired, I'm not going to give any answers before present question. Otherwise, that kind of ask questions also, we always had the opportunity. And then also until I was Khenchen Namdul Rinpoche really explained word by word. We had the opportunity to learn, and there's a sense of kind of confidence what we're trying to do, and we see the opportunity and how lucky we are, and this is the opportunity maybe we able to serve this doctrine as something like with really devotion and appreciation. That kind of circumstance we able to brought this in English, otherwise impossible.
Yeah, amazing. I certainly very clearly remember and cherish how thoroughgoing, how erudite, how very articulate Khenchen Namdul Rinpoche is when he gives these kinds of teachings. I've not come across many teachers, in fact, anyone who is as thoroughgoing as him when he delivers teachings on particular subject. But then now coming back to this translation, I was a bit curious about this. For this particular book, you put it as jewel treasure of Dharmadhatu. You left Dharmadhatu untranslated. I suppose there is a reason. But then in most other cases, when people translate Rinpoche Zö, which is used for all the 7 treasures of Longchenpa, there's the word treasury or precious treasury. And I think even in the case of Sigden Rinpoche, you yourself use treasury of words and meaning.
Mhm.
But in this case, you went for jewel treasure. What was the reason behind that? Is there a significance in this shift?
Very insightful to notice that. Not many people would notice that. That's good. Yes, there's several reasons. First of all, most important reason, jewel treasure of the Dharmadhatu is Rinpoche's translation in English. And secondly, I will tell you the truth, in the beginning, we didn't translate it that way. Precious treasury of the Dharmadhatu. And then when you go back through and you look at Longchenpa's own explanation of the etymology for these terms, for the title, you have to use the word jewel. And so, that's how precise masters are, such as Dungse Rinpoche. He knew that. That's why he chose jewel. And this is something that, random translator may just overlook, trying to find a better way to say the title. And so, and because among all 7 treasures, this is the pinnacle. So it is the treasure. It's not the treasury, it's the treasure. It's the jewel treasure. And of the Dharmadhatu, it seems there are certain Sanskrit terms that are better to be left in Sanskrit. And the readers of this level of material, they're familiar with those terms. If they're not, they shouldn't even be reading this. So that's the reason.
That makes sense. I was also assuming that might be the reason why you left many terms. Actually, besides Dharmadhatu, you have Kayas, the enlightened bodies being left as it is. And then you have, I can't remember, but quite a number of Sanskrit terms left as they are.
Yes. Well, for example, if you're gonna translate Kunda Zangpo into English, the all good or the ever excellent, it has really a whole other meaning from what is Samantabhadra. And so, it seemed important to us, and Rinpoche also gave us directives on these subjects. There are certain terms now we can safely keep in Sanskrit. And the bodhicitta also is the main subject of this text, but readers, who know something a little bit more about this term know that bodhicitta has both genuine absolute connotation and relative. And so this is all from the genuine perspective. And so it makes sense to say this term bodhicitta, which also, when you're reading the verses, the root verses, you have one term rather than 2 or 3 English words. So you're able to have the same kind of poetic presentation for the recitation of the root verses in English. And it was part of our goal to make sure that we could match the English as closely to the Tibetan as possible so that English readers could sing and chant this in English like Tibetans do in Tibetan.
I think I understand that. I think preserving the original terms, some of them like Dharmadhatu and Bodhicitta in Sanskrit, sort of saves the sanctity or the sacredness to some extent and the asceticism. But then one thought that came to me, which I thought I should ask you, and these questions I'm asking you, we've not prepared in advance, so please don't mind if they come quite upfront. When we have terms like Dharmadhatu and Bodhicitta in the precious treasury, jewel treasure of Dharmadhatu here used, a lot of the readers may just assume it refers to the sort of ordinary Bodhicitta or Dharmadhatu you would find in a Mahayana Sutra or a Shastra, right? So Bodhicitta in the conventional sense, Dharmadhatu in the sense, say, Nagarjuna's Dharmadhatu Stava, the praise of Dharmadhatu has. So wouldn't that mislead readers also to think that Longchenpa is only talking about that kind of Bodhicitta and the Dharmadhatu that's already in the sutras? How do we, don't we lose the opportunity to tell this is a different sort of Dharma Dhatu and Bodhicitta that Longchenpa has in the context of Dzogchen?
In the pages of the commentary, Longchenpa himself directly addresses that because, I think the reader knows that this text is already on the level of the quintessential heart essence cycle of the Upadesha class of Ati Yoga. And so they're not going to confuse the usage of the terminology with a lower vehicle's usage of the same terminology. And I think it's fair for, English readers to become privy to this knowledge and to, work with this more. So I think it's fine that we leave it in, certain key terms, that we leave them in the Sanskrit original.
And also, like Korndi, Samsara and Nirvana. And Trillino Rinpoche will say, if that's said in Tantric texts or Great Perfection texts, then he will say Samsara and enlightenment, not say Nirvana. But in Tibetan, all the way, there is a Samsara and Nirvana depend on the practitioner, student, the reader. They know what kind of subject they studying. Then they know Nirvana or the state of enlightenment. That kind of, I think, I hope the student will understand, even though Dharma Dhatu is the same terminology, but different levels of, there is a meaning and to understand, and that's why we also really we can't find exactly really like satisfied words in many occasions, but that way depend on the explanation when they received, and then they maybe can understand the meaning. And also,
with regard to that kind of approach, I appreciate that you also have at the beginning of the book a kind of a statement saying readers must proceed following the proper sort of rights or procedures, right? So I think a lot of the people in the audience may not necessarily know that. So it would be good to give us a brief say guidance on how readers should approach this book. Although it is published and available now, people should be aware of how to approach it.
Yes, thank you. That's very important. We've made it clear in the book itself, but to clarify that here in this public forum, in order to really read and study this book, one has to receive certain empowerment. Generally for Vajrayana, the gateway is Wang, or empowerment, but specifically for this level of Dzogpa Chenpo, Ati Yoga, the empowerments are specific. And it would be either the Nyingtik Yabshi, the 4 sections of the heart essence tradition, these empowerments, or the Tikle Gyatchen empowerment. And once any of those empowerments are received, then you as the reader should take care to receive a reading transmission from a master that you have regard for, devotion for, and to receive that reading transmission, which can be received online. Lung can be given electronically because it's listening to the sound. And then, of course, receiving teaching on the meaning directly from the teacher. That's not a requirement to actually purchase this book and have it and to begin to study it, but it's highly recommended that you as a student may try to receive more instructions from your own teacher, or if it is to be Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche, all of his teachings have been recorded. He's very careful to make sure that every base is covered from beginning to end, because he only gives these teachings once in a lifetime. He's not going to repeat this teaching. That was it. And it was 6 years. And so you could contact Vlada Baratsana to receive audio files of his teaching, and there will be transcripts available in the near future. He didn't want to have his teachings made into a book. And so this will be the only volume. And then the transcripts will be in spiral bound volumes like we usually make them available. And also they can be purchased electronically.
This is a very interesting phenomenon, I think, as the Buddhist wisdom goes from the Himalayan Buddhist cultural context to the Western world or an international arena. That in places like Bhutan, and I am sure Lama also in Golok and Kham areas, people will be reading Chögyam like a prayer book. A lot of people in Bhutan have the habit of reading it at funerals next to the corpse, although they understand perhaps not a single word or a verse, but people read it. And the other day I was quite pleasantly surprised to find Batu Rinpoche praising the 7 treasures of Longchenpa and then telling people, no, you must read it and chant it with melody, sing it. If you have encountered this teaching and haven't read it, you have basically no mind. So when you look at from that point of viewpoint, people read here without major restrictions. Of course, a lot of people will have received the room. But then reading in the Western context is quite different, isn't it? Because you're trying to absorb the meaning and try to engage with the text. So maybe we have to have this new formality on how to approach the text in the West, quite different from the traditional. Lama, how do you see that? Because you're from the traditional world, now dealing with the Western audience.
Yes, that's true. In Tibet and Golok area, is this kind of text really not like in Bhutan. A lot of people in Tibet, in Golok, only monks, nuns, and some practitioners can read such texts, but otherwise most people can't even read. That's why I think not even read. But then those monks and nuns also read this when they have some kind of like transmission or empowerment or something, blessings, their connection with this, then they can read, they will read, but otherwise they will buy, but they put in the shrine room like that. Very strict, but this day is changing. A lot of people are able to read, but in the West, I thought, because here just not reading, but also trying to, without teacher or without explanation, and they apply their way of understand whatever they got from book, then sometimes maybe misleading and maybe not really, maybe can be dangerous. That's the, I think, reason, especially tantric teachings. There is each words, behind each word, there is a profound explanation. With explanation, when they internalize that subject, of course, blessings, but otherwise, just pick up book and open and read and then meditate, apply, it can be dangerous. That's why maybe they put in this little bit kind of boundaries and guidance. Otherwise, of course, this is for practitioners. One time, when we finished Jetsun commentary by Lirpa Lingpa, just published, and then Karen Rinpoche was there too, and we were in Europe, and this Lirpa Ling, we're doing 1 month retreat, Jetsun retreat. During that time, the book arrived, like a couple hundred books. There's a 400 senior practitioners practicing together and holding that book. It's really, really beautiful. They're just receiving kind of like a traditionally, appropriately, not just only we able to translate and publish, but right away they practice and using. It's really like a great joy when we see that kind of process. I think, of course, that's why we all working and we all wishing. In other words, not the boundaries, something like based on stinginess or biased, or I think, but I think that's the only intention.
Yeah, wonderful. So this book that you worked on, obviously, Chewing Rinpoche's Age, Jewel Treasure of Dharma Dhatu, is the ultimate exposition of Trekche cutting through teachings of Longchenpa. But besides that, what would you say is its very unique, very special quality? Would you like to share a verse or two of the translation, if you like? I'll ask this question, and then after this, we'll open to the audience who have probably many more questions. So,
Yes,
it's special about this book, about Longchenpa's
Yeah, this book is really the process of we able to this book is this kind of is amazing. I said before the connection with teachers, but Longchenpa himself said in the conclusion of this book, said this sky-like practitioner with a definitive realization compiled this scripture meaning according to the personal comprehension in harmony with the 21 root transmissions from the mind class and 3 from the expense class and 4 from Upadesha. That kind of statement is really, really with confidence, not just arrogant, but it's not just intellectual understand and then compile this kind of book, but through his realization and based on this sacred text, and he himself with confidence, like that kind of presentation, it's really, really special book. As a Buddhist, especially as a Nyingmaba, this is really not just only we trying to say, Patrul Rinpoche is unbiased. Every lineage will respect, but where he see this book is really like a living Buddha. Even meeting Kundu Zambo in person, he said there's nothing more than this to receive or understand. That kind of book is we're really, really lucky, even fortunate to make even connection, that kind of feeling.
And I have to say for myself, just personal experience with many teachers, but the one that stands out the most is Dungse Trilino Rinpoche. Honestly, this was like the aorta of his heart. And Rinpoche would always have the root verses with Rinpoche. And he would often say, anytime you feel irritated, he said for himself, if he feels anxious, if there's a sense of irritation or unrest or angina, he had a heart issue, all he has to do is pick up Chewing Zut and read one shaloka, and everything dissolves. And there are so many times that it made an impression upon me just how important this teaching was to not only bring a peaceful state of mind, but to cut through to the nature of original purity, the essence of Trekchit.
Thank you. Wonderful. Very beautiful. Marcus, shall we take some questions? Will you read the questions out, or should I?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's a lot of people on Zoom and on Facebook. And we have a lot of different questions coming in. Well, one recent question that's general is why is this particular book considered the pinnacle of Longchenpa's 7 treasuries? What is it about this one that's more special than all the other special treasuries? Maybe you can say a little bit more about that.
That in Patrul Rinpoche said that in particular, okay, this exactly answers Patrul Rinpoche.
This is the speech of Organ Jigme Chugi Wangpo, Patrul Rinpoche. In particular, the jewel treasure of the Dharma Dhatu, the most profound of the profound, eloquently lays bare mind's fundamental essence, the meaning of Dharmakaya, without addition or exclusion. That is the essential view of the omniscient master, Longchenpa. This Shastra of his represents the advent of the actual Dharmakaya in person. Such an excellent treatise is the actual living Buddha that accomplishes the deeds of the victorious ones in this samsaric existence. Since this Shastra openly reveals the wisdom mind of the victorious one, even meeting the Buddha himself will not exceed this. A commentary such as this is also a treasure of all sublime Dharma and is the ultimate subject matter of all Dharmas, nakedly revealing the wisdom of Dharmakaya. Even if compared with all Dharma, there is nothing that exceeds this. So it goes on. There's more, but I think you get the point.
That's exactly, I think, the reason. Of course, other treaties, just one after another, so beautiful and so precious. But this is, yes.
And because the root verses are so eloquent, and they just go right into your core, the root verses will be published separately, and those root verses can be carried around and just recited and sung in the way that we've mentioned. And that's unique to the 7 treasuries.
If I may also share a bit here to the person who asked the question, I mean, when you look at the 7 treasures or treasuries, I think this is the practice also in Khenpo Jigme Phuntso's center in Serpa, that you see the treasure of wish-fulfilling jewels, wish-fulfilling gem, Yishu Rinpoche, which talks about sutra generally, and also a bit about tantra, of course. Then the Dukta Rinpoche, the treasure of tenet systems, which again deals with a lot of sutra stuff. Then goes to the treasure of instructions, which deals with both sutra and tantra. And then you reach tantra, which is dealt by the jewel treasure of Dharma Dhatu, the treasure of what was translated as fundamental nature by Woolston. Then you have the treasure of word and meaning, or word, I think it's another translation. But anyway, yeah, Sigdhye Rinpoche and Tekchok Rinpoche of Supreme Vehicle. And when you look at those, I suppose Tekchok Rinpoche and Sigdhye Rinpoche deals a lot with Thögyal as well, right? Dzogchen system as a whole. And then it's the Neluk Rinpoche and Choying, which deals with the ultimate view, the Dharma Dhatu, in the most sort of intense manner. And Choying Rinpoche particularly dealing with the highest view from all aspects. And I think that's how perhaps the view, the wisdom aspect becomes the highest or the ultimate in the Buddhist, not Buddhist, sorry, in the Buddhist ontological hierarchy.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah. Maybe for the general audience here, since there's a lot of people from all over the world, maybe you could say a little bit more about Longchenpa and Longchenpa's view in relation to other systems in Buddhism. Some people are asking about Longchenpa's view versus Chandrakirti, which may be a bit much for this discussion, but maybe just talk a bit more about Longchenpa's view and Longchenpa's place in the history of Buddhist ideas.
Okay, I don't know, maybe not much, but I will say a few things about Longchenpa. Longchenpa is a well-known scholar, well-known accomplished one, well-known poet, and also like the 14th century, he is really kind of like a before him there is a writers, scholars, but the way writing is really not like a Longchenpa. From Longchenpa, he really established the understand of the poetry that came from India. Younger Meloma, we called, like mere like a, I don't know exactly in Sanskrit, but the system, way of writing.
Kapya Darshan.
Also, so that one is really not just I'm saying, but scholars in 21st centuries, poets think from Longchenpa, at the Longchenpa's writing really present the way of that kind of writing, the system from India, ancient India. And then after that, then like Tsongkhapa, and then Patrul Rinpoche, Mipo Rinpoche, everything is really one after another great scholars. Way of writing is like that. But Longchenpa himself is because of his realization and his education is way of his writing is so beautiful, so profound. Every word hold really like a treasure of really meaning. And he himself said, the best poet in the snowland of Tibet. In these days, the scholars and poets saying that really he said himself said, but that's hold that meaning because where he's writing and where present the meaning, and especially this kind of writings, not just only flowery poetry, but the whole the ultimate meaning of Buddha Dharma. And also, Khenchen Zhanga, the great scholar in Nyingma tradition, he sees Longchenpa is really has every aspect of quality, education, realization, compensation, really include like a way of mind training, way of relating to teacher, and way of really renunciate the samsara, everything. He said Longchenpa is the embodiment of all scholars in Tibet. You can say like Longchenpa hold that kind of quality, every aspect of scholarship in Tibet. And he said there is practitioners in Tibet, they accomplished like the Mahasiddhas in India, but both scholarship and accomplishment hold like Longchenpa, there's no comparison any other practitioner except Longchenpa. And that is he said, not biased view. If someone's careful, think carefully, and then they will know who he is. And that's why our teachers really their heart essence of their practice is Longchenpa's teachings. And then Khenchen Namdrol Rinpoche also received these teachings directly from Khenchen Jigme Phuntsok with the permission and entrusted him to teach. That's why first came to America and taught this lineage from begin to end. We had the opportunity to serve, and then Trillinor Rinpoche himself is also literally reincarnation of Longchenpa himself. There's many wonderful connections. We just had the opportunity to serve with the best really intention. And in this book, and that's why the Longchenpa is really very, very special. teacher in Nyingma tradition, in Buddhism, but especially in Nyingma tradition.
Thank you.
Sanjay, do you have anything to add? I would like to add something to what Lama has shared already.
Please.
Lama, by the way, there is somebody in the question in the chat even asking if you would at some point be kind to give a lung of the Chögyam, which is from this lineage. So I think we are already having people who will follow the procedure.
That's all.
But in addition to what Lama has just shared, one thing that Longchen really stands out is as the unparalleled systematizer of the Dzogchen tradition. I think there were, of course, great scholars, even Longzompa before him, and then many after him. But I think no one has been as exhaustive, as authoritative as him in systematizing the Dzogchen tradition. His expertise is not just limited to Dzogchen. He was at that very vibrant phase of Tibetan literary culture about 100 years after Sakya Pandita, one generation before Tsongkhapa, that really excellent classical era when a lot of Tibetan traditions are getting formalized and specialized, having received almost all the teachings from India by then. So he, as Lama pointed out, is a consummate Tibetan scholar, mystic, meditator, master.
Yes. Yes, I would also add too that in terms of the topic of the view, of course, that's something very vast, which we aren't even qualified to discuss in depth and don't have time now. But just to mention, he is in this treatise, he's totally illuminating, like no other, this fourth cycle of the Upadesha class, which is the Yangsang Nyingtik, the quintessential heart essence tradition. And the view of that tradition is what's referred to as the pinnacle of all vehicles. It's the Ati of the Ati. And Khenchen Namgyal Rinpoche addresses that in his foreword. So I would encourage everyone to have a look at that. It's a very subtle point, that which even surpasses Ati. Ati meaning mind class, expanse class, and Upadesha class. And then you can understand more about what Longchenpa is touching upon. And furthermore, he uses the all-creating monarch, the Kunchet Gyalpo, as one of the main texts that he's citing throughout his commentary, which is well known to be of the mind class. And so he merges these two with his unique realization of the explanation of Rigpa Yeshe, pristine wisdom awareness. And so just by reading this, that question will be answered. Mm-hmm. If you're a practitioner qualified to do so and you've been studying Dzogchen, by reading this book carefully, and it's not like you can sit down and just start reading. You have to read a little bit and sit and rest in mind's nature if you can. Really bring that in and think carefully. It's still, we're using mind to understand, which is crucial, but this goes beyond mind. And he has the ability to deliver that information like no other.
And I would like to say one word here, like Tsigdon Rinpoche Jinzo, the genuine treasury of genuine meaning, is really mainly explains Togel teachings. We all think Togel is really the highest teachings, but without structured teachings views, and there's no Togel practice or result. That's why also one can understand structured. This structured is this subject is completely in and out explanation of structured view, and when you have this, then there is a Togel practice. That way also we can understand this book is a very special among Dzogpa Chenpo teachings.
if you have the opportunity to really learn this book and with faith and devotion, read the root verses and practice, there's no doubt liberation will occur. If not in this life, at the moment of death. This is something that will affect us in the deepest, most impactful way. And I think that's what most of us are hoping for, right?
Yes, wonderful.
And I wanted to mention too, I was asked to mention this because many of you who are listening have placed orders for the book and are waiting for your books. I know Venerable Karma Punsokla doesn't even have a book yet. And so we really appreciate your patience and understanding because we're a small organization due to the kindness of David and Helena Bolduc of the Boulder Bookstore. There's one employee filling the orders. So it's quite backed up since this is in high demand. So please be patient. Your book will reach you eventually. We're trying our best.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes.
I also hear from the little bird that you have finished issuing out all the copies you have.
Almost.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yes, it's really quite something. And thanks goes to Eric Cullen Bell, of course, for his amazing kindness.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Well, maybe I should just mention that many of the questions left are exhorting you to give the lung or asking about how people can receive the empowerments and so on. So I don't think I have to repeat all of those other questions really, except for that there are many people asking for that and also asking if they do have those empowerments, whether or not you may give a course for those people who are qualified on the text. I think questions like that are coming up a lot. So, yes.
Let me say there that I don't think Lama Chunam or I, we're not individuals who give those kinds of transmissions. So we're really the translators of this. Of course, it could be possible to give the reading transmission, but much better than us, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche gives these transmissions. We'll be giving, I read recently, Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche will be giving. Dakpa Tuku Rinpoche in Finland could be requested. There are other Rinpoches, Tulkus giving the transmissions. As for the empowerments, it's the same thing. You need to receive that from those kinds of teachers. And Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche, when he does return to the West, he will probably give Dzogchen empowerment again. And so there would be a wonderful opportunity. But, as long as you have the empowerment and the reading transmission, you can study and read this text.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Well, yes, final comments?
For those who are interested, often lamas don't give a reading or an authorization for specific texts, but rather there may be big gatherings where they give the whole 7 treasuries or the whole Ningti Yapshi. So Longchenpa has not only composed the 7 treasures, there are also the trilogy of the rest, Nyal Sokorsum, then you have the Ningti Yapshi. So I think the best is for a lot of people to aim for one of these big Lung or Wang ceremonies, where then they will be able to get the complete set.
Yes, perfect. Wonderful. And that's very precious in this day and age, those kind of highly qualified great Vajra masters. They're fewer than they used to be. And so we all need to, be looking for that opportunity and to seize the opportunity when it comes. Rabjam Rinpoche also.
Who is currently giving the Rinchen Gyaltsen empowerment here in Bhutan. But, yeah, something like this is an opportunity for people to be.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we could post a little bit more about upcoming things. I see a lot of people actually sending messages saying precisely when some of these things are being given. So we can put that on information online as well, so people know.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other question, Marcus, or shall I ask my questions? I've got one more question at least before we wrap up.
Yes, please.
Now,
Please, there's kind of a lot of different questions coming through that seem similar. There are some questions also asking about the translation, which maybe you're going to address. But one of the main things that comes up multiple times is asking about there are other translations of the same text as well. Just asking about whether it's really the same or if there are different things. But it sounds like you actually addressed some of that by explaining that this came out of the series of teachings from Khenchen Namdro Rinpoche. So that's what makes this different. Do you have any other comments about that?
I have.
I'm not totally familiar with the English translations or translations to other European languages, but please correct me, Lama and Sangila. This is the first first translation of a commentary on Chögyam Rinpoche's way, right? Was there another
Actually,
one?
No, there is another one by Richard Barron, Chögy Nyima.
Okay, I thought he was only the root verses, so a commentary as well.
This when Rinpoche is giving teaching, before he's giving teaching, and he said, is there a translation? We said, yes, there is a translation. Maybe we can use that. He said, no. Even though there is translation, even though he's a really great translator, but you must translate. There is a different terminology, different way of understand, and that way then improve or develop this system or the lineage refined. Otherwise, just like believing only one, that's the only one, there is no comparison, then that's not the way. You try your best and use terminologies, whatever you used before. That's why we start from there and like that. And of course, Richard's translation is beautiful, but also there's other translations coming, the same subject, but there is definitely not because same people, the way of understand is always a little bit different, but that's good thing. Then you can compare, and our way of translating is really sometimes when we have 100% confidence the meaning, then we're not focusing on the terminology, but the meaning, holding the meaning and trying to bring into English. And sometimes just hold the terminology whatever way we can understand. Otherwise, kind of like a anyway, that's the way we translate. And the process of translation is really also treated as like a meditation session. Chenli Rinpoche told us, start with generate bodhicitta, and then treat the process of translation is really meditation session, and then conclude with the dedication. Every session we did that, and I think because of the teachers and the way of really we receiving these teachings, there is blessings, definitely not because of us, but the way of transmitting this book hold blessings. That's sure.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to take an opportunity to ask. We have the translation of Neluk Dze from Padmakara, the Treasure of Fundamental Nature. We have the translation of Sigdun Dze, Treasure of Genuine Meaning or Word and Meaning. What other treasure texts have been translated besides these three now? Do you know? Is there a translation of the Treasure of Wish-Fulfilling Jewel and of the Tenet systems?
I don't think so.
No. So
Yeah.
3 out of
Mhm.
7 so far.
A lot of people are wishing for the Tekchok. So, that's a huge undertaking, but I mean, these are things that need to be translated. It's definitely very important.
But on the Chingze itself, there are now two translations, we could say, of the auto commentary of Longchenpa himself. I
Mhm.
think there is also the commentary of Khangsar Tenpa Wangchuk, which is in the pipeline.
Mm.
So one of the things I want to ask now, but I think this connects quite well with this conversation we are having right now. What other projects do we have right now? Lama already shared about the general works of Laito Berosana, but specifically talking about Longchenpa and maybe about the Heart Essence Nyingtik tradition, especially in association with Khenchen Namdul Rinpoche. What future projects do you have in mind? What are you engaged in right now that this book is over?
Well, we've been receiving the Khandro Nyingtik teachings in India from Khenchen Namdol Rinpoche. He's delivering them only in Tibetan at Namdol Ling. And because all these years he came to the West to teach, and so he needed to, give some time to the Asian disciples. And he's teaching this Zapten Gyatso Trin. So again, this is Longchenpa. And very, very important. I thought to myself, even before going there, how could there be something more surpassing than what we've already received and read? But I have to tell you, the Khandro Nyingtik is surpassing. It is exceptional. It's shocking. Of course, that's Guru Rinpoche's Dzogchen teaching in this world. And half of the Nyingtik Yabshi, right? So that's probably something we're looking at. We don't know what Khenchen Namdol Rinpoche will decide to teach for English translation, but we're thinking Zaplam Salshet, which is Mindraling Trichen's commentary to the way of practicing the Khandro Nyingtik, which Venerable Sean Price has already translated. And so, we can work on that to make it available and see what goes. But right now we don't know exactly for sure what Khenchen Rinpoche will be teaching. But you see, we follow his lead and serve him accordingly.
Yeah, our main work is really like serving Karambuche for more than 20 years since we found Latin Berosana. Its really main activity is associated with the Karambuche's programs and teachings and like that.
Any other final words you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Just grateful for the opportunity to have this forum and meet with all of you who are with us today. And I wish we could see you, but we feel you. And it's just, we're all such fortunate human beings, really. I just want to express my gratitude for this life and the opportunities. Thank you very much.
And thank you for the opportunity. Also, I wish we will follow exactly the guidelines of the lineage masters and maintain this sacred lineage in this language, really authentic, like in Tibet. 1,000 years later, still everything completed, like in Bhutan too. There is a practitioners, because of the practitioners' dedication and recognition of this lineage as sacred and profound. That's my wish, and thank you for everyone joining with us. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. We should show you gratitude for this wonderful gift you are giving to the world. This is an amazing gift, as you have already shared earlier, the way Patrul Rinpoche extols this work as this great gift for humanity, well, for the whole sentient world, and particularly for the Buddhist world, and even more so for the Tibetan Buddhist world, particularly the Dzogchen tradition. I think the Dzogchen tradition being the most powerful dharma for the degenerate age.
Yes.
This is going to be an enormously, tremendously beneficial gift. And as a Bhutanese, I couldn't be more proud because, of course, Longchenpa is a great Tibetan master, but we have this very close connection to him with 8 different spiritual sanctuaries, Lingge, associated with him. My village, in fact, we have the claim of being his descendants. Whether Tibetans accept or not, he's supposed to have spent 10 years in Bhutan and left behind also a family line. And then, of course, in addition to the teachings that are being passed down, we also have Pema Lingpa, the foremost Bhutanese religious figure who claimed to be the immediate incarnation of Longchenpa. So your work is an excellent legacy for Bhutan. So thank you very much. And as Lama said earlier, I think in the Buddhist or sort of Dharma tradition, we do the dedication. If we can sort of dedicate all our merits to all these ancient beings. I'll read out this translation of the famous verse, Sonamdi Thamche Zikpani. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Saturday.
Thank you. See you soon. Thank you.